Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast, where we discuss nonprofit technology, cybersecurity, tech project implementation, strategic planning, and nonprofit IT careers. Find us at communityit.com.
Welcome, everyone, to Community IT Innovators Voices interview. Today, I'm very happy to be interviewing Matt Eshleman. So, Matt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for the intro, Carolyn. So my name is Matthew Eshleman, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Community IT. And actually, as of this week, which is in January of 2023, I'm celebrating my 21st anniversary as a full-time employee at Community IT.
Congratulations. So that's my first question is, can you talk a little bit about your career path and when you joined Community IT, what did you do?
Sure. So actually, even though I'm celebrating my 21st anniversary as a full-time employee, I actually started as an intern in the summer of 2000 as part of my university program at Eastern Mennonite University. I was coming to DC to participate in a program that they called the Washington Study Service Year. And so that combined a year in DC, living in a group house, doing kind of part-time volunteer work, and then taking classes part-time and living in community. And my internship was at Community IT. And so I started a little bit early so I could kind of get a jump start on living in DC and just having that experience, and was able to get connected with Community IT, who was able to combine, kind of a part-time tech work. So during that first year, I did IT support at a nursing home. And then I also taught after-school computer classes at the Thurgood Marshall Center, which was located in the YMCA just off of U Street in DC.
It seems like a long way from starting as an intern to being the what is your title? Can you Chief
Technology Officer, CTO?
Chief Technology Officer.
Yeah.
So, as Chief Technology Officer, what do you do in a typical day?
Well, no day is typical, and I kind of have a dual focused role in that I'm responsible for the oversight, architecture and management of what we call our centralized services team. So at Community IT, we provide managed IT services to almost 200 nonprofit organizations that represents about 6,500 devices. So I oversee the team that's really responsible for managing the tools and technology that we use to handle all of those endpoints. So that's kind of one big area of focus. And then the other area of focus is more, client facing in terms of working with larger organizations to help them plan and architect, more sophisticated technology solutions that may be required for their organization. So in that role, I really work a lot more closely with our IT business managers and the projects team to develop requirements and kind of figure out the best technology solutions that would be appropriate for those organizations.
Can you talk a little bit about that IT business manager team and their role and how that helps clients of Community IT?
Yeah, I think it's something that's unique that Community IT does. I think early on, we have really taken a relationship-driven approach to the technology support that we do. I think we've recognized that the actual technology piece of the work is relatively small. It's super important, but it is relatively small. I mean, the big thing that we focus on is, I think, helping organizations, use and adopt appropriate technology solutions. And that really involves a lot of planning. It involves understanding the organization, understands how their staff, how they use technology, the tools that are available. And so that IT business management role was really developed and, kind of created as a separate entity within Community IT a number of years back, because what we found is that, there's really some specialization that's required to operate networks. So we have centralized services that's really focused on consistency and operating at scale. So we look at our network as 6,500 devices in 200 sites. So we really want to take a consistent and automated approach to supporting that. we have engineers who are very good at projects and really great at the technology. And then we have this whole separate role of IT business managers who are really focused on working with our clients to, again, understand their budgeting cycle, their financial requirements, their operating requirements, and then they can kind of relate those specific requests back to the different teams, so that we can kind of get the right people playing the right roles at our client.
That makes a lot of sense. What would you say is your favorite thing about your job at Community IT?
Well, I really like the fact that I have, I get to work at a tech company that has lots of great employees. I think we're almost at 50 staff right now. And I think we've got great people, great employee owners working at Community IT who are really dedicated to their job, they're experts, and they're always willing to share, what they know. So I think that's great to feel like I've got the support of a huge, bench of tech staff. And then I really enjoy the client work that we get to do. I mean, working with so many different organizations, seeing how they're using technology to, support their mission, or get out of the way so that they can really focus on their work is really energizing to me, and to just kind of see how many different organizations we get to affect. So whenever I, see people in the news or hear them on the radio, I really love knowing that Community IT has played a role in, getting that organization to where they are.
I know, it's such a great feeling when you're like, and we help them, we support them to do that cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you were interested in technology, even as a college student, and you knew you were going to have a technology career. Do you have advice for other maybe students or people who are starting out in a tech career? Are there certain certifications that you should get, or like you did, find an internship that kind of combines your interests? Like how do you start in nonprofit technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think it it helps to figure out what you like and what you're good at. And I was really fortunate in that the college experience I had included that internship element, and I think without that internship element, I wouldn't have ended up at Community IT, certainly. And it may have taken me, I think, a lot longer to end up at a place where I really felt comfortable. So I think, to me, having some kind of internship or volunteer experience is really helpful. So for me, I was a computer science major. I have a math minor and a degree in computer information systems. And so I knew I wanted to be in the tech space, but it wasn't until I came, to DC and had that internship experience where I realized that the things that were really appealing to me were working with end users, doing some of the network administration side. And, it wasn't the coding and development that was appealing to me. I'm an outgoing person. I like that social interaction. And so, meeting and interacting with clients, going from place to place, that was all like really energizing to me. And if all I had was kind of a background in coursework, kind of doing coding projects, I don't think that, that gift of being connected with people would have been realized. And so I do think for folks that are starting out, finding ways to get connected with, volunteer opportunities or internships or other service as a way to do some self-exploration, to figure out, what you like, what you're good at, what you have talents in, is really an important way to start. And then the certifications and all of that stuff can come later. And I do think technology is one of those fields where, you don't necessarily have to have a tech degree background to get started. I mean, I think that may be shifting a little bit, but I look around at the colleagues that I have at Community IT, and, some of the most talented people don't have, a tech background. They don't have a tech degree, but they have aptitude for it, and they've kind of cultivated over time. And then maybe they've supplemented, that learning with some additional certifications, which again can always be added on later. So.
That makes sense. I'm guessing that cybersecurity was not as big a part of your role when you started 23 years ago. That is definitely something that's changed a lot. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you got interested in it, and how, I know you as somebody who kind of heads up our how we handle cybersecurity, and you talk a lot about it in different webinars and speaking engagements. So how did that come about?
Yeah, I think certainly whenever I started at Community IT, back in 2000, there wasn't, at least at Community IT, there wasn't a whole separate discipline around cybersecurity. We certainly had best practices for how we would expect to set things up and, good practices that we would follow. But that really, I think, has changed over time. I think certainly there wasn't the same scale of kind of criminal cyber crime that exists now. You see that certainly in the FBI reports over time. I mean, that's something that's really accelerated a lot just over the last 5 to 10 years. And so there wasn't kind of the same degree of threats. We've always had antivirus on our networks that we supported. We've always encouraged clients to have good passwords, but I think the kind of the scale and complexity of kind of what is considered cybersecurity certainly has expanded. And so I do think in reaction to, I think, the rise of cybercrime as kind of a financially motivated activity to kind of break into networks and either, try to deploy ransomware or just, straight up, dupe people or con them into, buying gift cards or updating wire transfer information. There has needed to be, a really separate and added focus on protecting an organization and protecting their data. So, I think it came out of our approach of having, just good IT practices. And then those certainly have evolved to keep up with the attacks that we see across the networks that we support.
And so when you expressed an interest in taking this on or becoming like our internal expert in this, how did Community IT support you in that? Like, I've been interested over these interviews that people, they don't stay stuck in, like, if you start on help desk, you're not necessarily on help desk forever. There's lots of opportunities to be interested in something. Sometimes people are able to create, a job category, a job description for themselves. So how did that work with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So certainly, I started as an intern, working 20 hours a week. And of that, only maybe 8 to 10 was actually doing tech work. So I was what we called back then a network administrator. So a tier 1 technician. And then after about a year or two, then I was promoted to network engineer. And so back in those days, every tech, kind of had a stable of clients that they were responsible for. So we didn't have any centralized management. And so, I moved up as an engineer, and then I had the clients that I supported, and I did everything from technical escalation from the tier 1s that I was responsible for to the projects at the client. And then that kind of became more specialized. And I think I became then a team lead responsible for a number of techs. And then, I think we have been developing the business over time. So there, Community IT of 2000 looks a lot different than, Community IT of 2023, in that there are jobs and responsibilities and titles that just never existed back then. And so we have done a lot of that, business innovation along the way to figure out, what jobs need to be done to support our clients, what positions maybe need to be created to encourage and take advantage of the skills that our staff have. And so I remember, I think my first, more senior level title was, I think, completely made up. I think I even wrote the own job description. I said, I think I'm going to be the director of professional network services. Like, that sounds like a cool title. It has director in it, has professional in it. I don't know that it made sense outside of any context, but in working with the leadership at Community IT, they're like, okay, sure. Like, we see that you've got some skills and talents in kind of the planning and the architecture area. And so as we were growing and evolving as a company, that was a role that said, okay, you can move into. And then I think the same way, the CTO position never existed before I essentially wrote the job description and talked to Johan, who's now the CEO, and said, hey, like, I really think I'm the CTO. Like, that's a role that that I think I'm doing already. And here's the job description. And let's figure out a way to make that transition happen. And so, a lot of it was, evolving over time and creating new job titles and new responsibilities in reaction to where we were as a company, and the needs of our clients and the skills and talents of our staff. So yeah, we have some unique job titles at Community IT because it has been largely an environment where we tend to hire a lot of junior staff and then cultivate them and grow them up. So we have not hired a lot of outside senior level techs from other organizations, and so it's felt like a very solid and organic growth plan that we've had that's really had strong leadership built in throughout it over the years.
That makes sense. So can you, since you are a cybersecurity expert, while I have you here, could you talk about maybe a couple of things that are like absolutely all nonprofits need to have in terms of cybersecurity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think, the less glamorous truth is I think a lot of cybersecurity, is not all, hackers in hoodies and like, what's the most sophisticated thing that we can do to protect ourselves? And, how are we going to, hack back the people that are getting us? But it really comes down to fundamental security controls that every organization needs to have in place. And so I think that's why we've taken a pretty measured and deliberative approach to cybersecurity. I don't get super excited or I think distracted about, what's the latest security breach to come out, because I think if organizations have good foundational plans in place, whatever the next breach is shouldn't actually impact their plan. And so the plan that I think all organizations need to follow is really grounded, in foundational elements such as having an IT acceptable use policy for your organization, having clearly communicated standards about here's the technology that we use at the organization, here's how it's expected to be deployed, here are the information systems we have, here's the sensitive data that we are, that we have to have. We don't want to collect more data than we actually need to use. We're going to provide security awareness training for our staff to help educate them. Because, as much as again, the buzz is around, these sophisticated hackers, like finding some website vulnerability and penetrating their way into the network through some, sophisticated 0-day attacks. The fact is most attacks are originating through email, tricking staff into clicking on links, giving up their password, even maybe giving up their multi-factor authentication, and then breaking in that way. And so for organizations that can, educate and help train their staff, that's a great resource. And then, on top of that, making sure that every account has, good passwords protected by an app-based multi-factor authentication so that, if that password or when that password is inevitably taken, then you've got that additional layer of multi-factor authentication control in place. So again, we in the work that we do, we certainly encounter really sophisticated attacks, and so there may be more that that organizations need to do, and we work with organizations to implement a lot more sophisticated controls. But when it really comes down to it, having staff who are engaged and aware and kind of know what to do whenever they see something that's, looks strange, that's an important foundational step. And having good, strong passwords with multi-factor authentication, that's another critical step. And then making sure computers are up to date, are protected with, a good antivirus package. That really gives you some good building blocks to make sure that your organization is protected against what the most common attacks are going to be.
That makes sense. I know that a lot of people have stereotypes around technology and people who work in technology, and some of them are fair and some of them are not fair. Do you have any, observations on personality types and traits that really help people work at Community IT?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I would say over time, I think Community IT has become a better place to work for people with different types of skills. I think, in the early days, because of the way we work, right? Everybody was kind of their own island and responsible for, doing all the things. It was really a type, if you were extroverted and were a good problem solver and, really detail oriented, like those were kind of the people that were really successful at community IT. I think over time, as we've developed more specialization, then it creates opportunities for people with different skills and abilities to join community IT. So again, like I mentioned, I'm responsible for our centralized services team. Like they don't ever really talk to clients at all because they're, really back-end focused. And so I think people there, they tend to be more introverted, but they're really, they have a high degree, I think, of responsibility and ownership over the platforms that they support. So even though they're, kind of one step removed from engaging with their clients, they still have that core connection to being open, sharing the knowledge that they have, and feeling a high degree of responsibility. I think, folks who work on our service desk and are answering the phones, they tend to be, again, really detail oriented, really personable, and kind of have that friendly, engaging demeanor, so that they can react and respond to people who are having like frustrating technology challenges that like just need to get fixed. And then again, we've got this whole IT business management team that really is a less technical role. They're not necessarily fixing the most detailed problems, but the folks in that team again are a lot are client facing. And then they maybe have more gifts and capabilities around, strategic planning or requirements analysis. And so, so I think over time, that is one thing that I've really appreciated at community IT, is that we've been able to, create some different specialization and get people into positions where they can play to their strengths and they can do things that they're good at and they enjoy. And then, from a company perspective, that, provide value to our clients. So taking that, strengths-based approach, I think, has been good for community IT and given us, I think, the long employee retention that we have. People come to community IT and they tend to stay a long time because I think it's a great place to work. We get to work with a lot of really fantastic organizations. And people are in jobs where, they're good at what they do, and they're not, beat up for weaknesses that they have, but they're put into positions where they can use their strengths to be successful.
That is one thing that in these interviews I've found there's a lot of job satisfaction and a lot of work-life balance as well, for sure. So I think this is a question I often ask people, and I get asked as well. So when you are asked, like, what does community IT do? Or what do you do at community IT? But what does community IT do? What do you tell people?
So, I think I first start with we provide IT services to nonprofit organizations. So that's kind of the baseline. And depending on the response from there, I would go on. I think for people that work at like really large organizations, they don't quite understand that. I think for people that work at, small organizations, or particularly other nonprofits, are like, oh yeah, like we have, then the conversation go from there, talking a little bit more about our outsourced IT services, and cybersecurity, I think, has become quite buzzy in the last couple of years. And so talking about how community IT supports organizations from a cybersecurity perspective, often, we'll continue the conversation, or we'll get a lot more interest.
Thank you so much, Matt, for taking this time to talk to me and letting me know all about your 23 years at Community IT. Congratulations again, and thank you.
Great. Thanks, Carolyn. It's been really fun talking with you about this, and talking about community IT and just thinking about the last 23 years and kind of all the growth and evolution that's happened over that time.
Community IT does these free webinars and podcasts for our community, and we love sharing our knowledge and experience. If you have more questions or are having trouble with your IT at your nonprofit, please get in touch with us on our website, www.communityit.com, so we can start a conversation or schedule an assessment. Downloading any of our free resources there will get you signed up for our webinar reminders, and you can attend our next webinar in real time and ask our experts your own questions. If you love podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits.